Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Awaken the World. It is Monday, March 28th in the year of 2022. Should we be paying attention to such things? 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, said the monk, "Where's your monastery?" Live here in the Awaken the World group with me, myself, and I. All three of us. Yeah. Hi. How you doing? Interesting world we're living in these days, hey? So, first of all, as always, looks like Kelly beat me to it, but yeah, much love to all of you. We're all part of one. And the sooner we get that, the better. And believe it or not, since there's only 2 comments so far, I see Louisa. Hi, Louisa. How you doing? And much love to you, too. Um, this is granted a really interesting time to be alive, and that's not a bad thing. It really doesn't make a lot of sense, and believe me, you've been here during boring times, and it's not like with human beings around that there's much opportunity for boring times, because we don't ever seem to behave ourselves long enough to really experience what we would consider a boring time. Now, when I say boring, I'm, speaking in relation to what's going on right now in the world because, I've never found life to be boring. As a matter of fact, there really is, it is a very short journey, just a literal dip in the physical pond of your existence. That's it. Yeah, that's a new one. I like that one. You are nothing more than a dip in the physical pond. Well, no wonder I don't have 10 million YouTube followers. This would probably explain a lot. So, what are we going to talk about tonight? Well, we're going to talk about a few different things, and maybe we'll begin with the title of the video, and that is the "Where's your monastery?" Now, in my own journey, and it started, like way back in the day. Yeah, write it down. Sure, I'll just inscribe it on a stone tablet. Yeah, it'll be there for 10,000 years from now. So, but back in the day when you had an awakening experience, when something happened to you that was out of the norm, uh, and you had to be very careful about who you talk to about it, because really, there wasn't a lot of exposure in the West yet in the end of the 70s. Still, it was just sort of the beginning of that, but there wasn't a lot of, we didn't have Deepak Chopra running all over the place way back in the day, and we didn't have uh, Eckhart Tolle. If you wanted spiritual wisdom, you kind of had to go to India or Tibet. And those were incredible journeys in my life, but also unnecessary these days. I mean, right now you don't need that, and that's a great thing because it offers awakening, and it offers an opportunity to speed up our trip into consciousness, because it is collective. It really is. We are all one. Like I said, that big giant blob. Although, depending where we are and where we're looking these days, it does appear that most of that blob may be moving in reverse. But there's still some of it moving forward, and that's the beautiful thing. So what's the real point here? Well, the real point is that the monasteries and temples and ashrams and that I was fortunate enough to stay in, they offered something that is quite frankly, we can talk about it, but it doesn't mean a lot until you actually experience it. So, you know, a lot of these places are made out of wood and concrete and stone. And all of those to varying degrees, stone and concrete, because of the limestone content, believe it or not, hold energetic memory, if you will, a resonance uh, for a very, very, very long time. And it actually begins to build. So, you know, Kelly witnessed this in our store when we had the grassroots, because our store was entirely made out of cement brick. And over a period of time, the store began to exude an aura that would draw people in. People would come in the door and say, you know, I wasn't even heading here, but I saw your sign and it's like something just pulled me in here. And that was a sign to me that the energy that we were intending was actually beginning to build and beginning to resonate within the structure itself. So, and yeah, Louisa, I think you're one of those people, come to think of it. So, you know, when we look at the that stone and that concrete and that wood, it's all holding this energy. So when you come into those places, there is a different feeling in the air. There's something you can't quite put your finger on a lot of times, unless you're a little more attuned and paying a little more attention and a little more versed in what's actually going on. And when you are, then you will feel this sense of peace and calm, as if you've suddenly been wrapped in this muffling blanket that is literally muffling the impact of the outside world. And there is this real sense of peace and calm. Now, this is one of the beautiful things about a monastery. And it could be an ashram, any place where the purpose is to be with oneself and to be with the one self. The I with a capital I. The one I. The I am. And it is so very important in this day and age, especially with what's happening in the world right now, that you find your monastery. Now, before you go flipping out and suggesting that you move into a monastery, and there's nothing wrong with that if you choose to do it, but most people, to be honest, are so acclimatized to Western culture that you'd have a very difficult time in a lot of ways. What I am suggesting, however, is that you create a monastic space, as you know we've done in our home here. So, you know, our entire house is specifically designed and put together and decorated and makes use of wood and stone and form and all these things to help evoke a energetic resonance of peace and well-being and stillness and wholeness. And that can be seen reflected in our cats. You know, constantly people come over and say, I've never seen cats so well behaved. I've never seen such beautiful, calm creatures. And our cats dislike the presence of a little too much noise or ruckus or movement. You know, they'll come and stand on the stairs, and when I come in the house, they'll be all wide-eyed and hair bristling, like someone's invaded the space, sort of thing. So you can create that monastery right in your own home. Now, if you don't have that opportunity, or you're, you know, situation doesn't lend to you creating that within your whole house, I would invite you to create that in a single room, just for yourself. A place where the only purpose of that space is going to be dedicated to your well-being, your connection to yourself. A place where you're going to meditate, a place where you're going to practice yoga perhaps. A place where you come just to sit in silence with yourself and read a good book. A place that you delineate consciously as an oasis, a physical representation of the oasis that exists within your own being. You know, I was talking to a group member who came over to help me install the catwalk for the cats upstairs a few days ago. And we were talking about the cleanliness of one's house. So people who come over to our home, you know, they don't even notice that we don't have cat hair floating around. We have a very nice, clean, tidy home. And that is both a reflection and a refraction of the state of consciousness within the egoic sense of self. In other words, clean mind will equal clean home. And if you think you have a clean mind and you look around and you see your house is a disaster, you don't have a clean mind. You have a very busy mind. And a lot of that busy mind may seem to be things that you have no control over, like children, or the fact that you're a single parent, or the fact that you're way too busy at work. Whatever the case may be, it's okay. But I promise you that there is always time to begin to clean and clear that clutter, to rub the dirt off. And when we can't quite do that within our egoic consciousness, I've recommended this technique to many people. You know, if you're struggling with something, go and clean something. Go and clean a bathroom. Make it shine. Go and tidy up your bedroom. Dust, whatever the case may be. There is a reciprocal relationship going on. You know, the one thing that I never ever advocate, and I've talked about before, is the idea, well, you know, you're a spiritual being having a human experience, so, you know, why don't you just check out right now and skip right to the end? And, you know, we would call that suicide, which is a ridiculous concept, of course, because it's only suicide when we take ourselves out quickly, right? If I put a gun to my head and pull my trigger, Garhen just committed suicide, right? But if I eat Kentucky Fried Chicken for 3 meals a day for 30 years and die of impossibly high cholesterol, that's not suicide. That's an act of nature or an act of God, or it's an act of chicken. Fried chicken. The point being is that you need that comforting space. You need that place of resonance, place of stillness, place of wholeness, place of oneness, where in times when you're struggling, you will come to rely on the energy that you're building in that space. And when you're not struggling, when you're feeling a sense of profound peace, and that profound peace is radiating out from you, you will imbue further that space with that energy, with that profound sense of peace and wholeness. And the beauty of it is even if you can only pick one small corner of a room to start with, that over time will begin to spread and spread and spread. Now, I kind of went a little bit sideways off track there, and then, my humor button tried to take over, and I do want to finish on that track a little bit. So we're going to jump over to that track for a minute. And the point I was trying to make is that when we look at life and try to escape it in any way, to remove ourselves and say, well, I'm a spiritual being and I don't have to be here and this isn't real, so I can go ahead and take myself out. You're not avoiding anything at all. All you're doing is going to repeat the same thing over and over again. And that's okay too. It's all right. People do it. It's fine. There's no such thing as suicide on the other side because there's no death. So there's just a realization that you've cut a journey short that you're going to have to pick up again. And that's really it. So the idea that your journey here has nothing to do with the physical and everything to do with the spiritual, or nothing to do with the spiritual and everything to do with the physical, that those are the two ends of the pendulum that represent being way off base. What's closer to the truth of your existence is that the physical and spiritual are both playing together. And those are labels. We could say the manifest and the unmanifest are both dancing together, and we call that physical life. They are not meant to be avoided or traded one for the other, and we've seen the results of that in history. And we can look to Buddha as an example, okay? So there was a time in Buddha's life where he believed that he literally had to focus on total body austerity. No sensory input, no food, pretty much no water, no nothing. All those years sitting in front of a cave wall until near death. He was saved and he realized the error of his ways. He realized that the body was the vessel in which to achieve that state. And we tend to forget that in some way. We tend to focus on a lot of what's turned out to be these days what I just call spiritual mumbo jumbo, because a deep awareness, a deep oneness and wholeness and a realization and awareness of that in your every moment of your existence by no means takes you away from the physical realm. As a matter of fact, it enriches it immensely. As I said to Kelly, between her and I, we kind of live in two different worlds. Because in my world, with the level of awareness I have, information is streaming at me consciously. I'm fully aware of it from so many sources that literally the obviousness of the next moment becomes readily apparent. And in that, I watch time dilate and compress together, literally in front of my eyes, and see that it indeed is all happening right now. And then you stretch it back out again, and it appears to be the past, appears to be the future. This journey involves this physical being. It involves your egoic sense of consciousness. Kelly and I utilize a VR headset for physical and mental stimulation. And we play very active games on it, minimal times, 20 minutes, 2 to 3 times a day, depending on the day, sometimes once a day if we're too busy. And it is actually incorporated in as part of our workouts. But one of the things that I have noticed is that the highest speed setting on one of our favorite applications, games that we play, where it was literally beyond my ability to grasp it all coming to me at one time, is now at the point where I can, at the mental level, literally loiter and just allow the body to have at it. And yet there's this space, this sense that, well, it could be a lot faster now because it's not fast to me anymore. And what that is, if we're talking about the physical world, is we're talking about the brain's plasticity, the plasticity of the egoic self, because that's what's creating the plasticity in the brain. That brain, that big lump in your head, is a manifestation of your consciousness. Your consciousness is not a manifestation of your brain. Your consciousness is manifesting that brain. And those changes, what we call that brain plasticity, its ability to adapt, is not only an adaptation in the structure, but an adaptation of consciousness. Your mind literally becomes faster. That's why ultimately, no matter how fast we make a computer, people will still drum their fingers waiting. We're always impatient. We have this amazing ability. How does this all blend into the monastery thing? Well, what we're really talking about is making use of that tool, making use of that mind-body, physical, non-physical, manifest, non-manifest, yin and yang whole. We're going to make use of all of it. Too many times we try to divide them up, or we try to stay on one side of it, on the side of the light and the spirit realm and the fluff. And we try to avoid what we consider the dark, physical, heavy. And yet the two are inseparable, and the illusion is that there's actually two of them. But that's what we have to work with. And it's a reconciliation of those two that leads to that state of wholeness, of oneness, of enlightenment. And you can help yourself on your journey by creating that space. Now, one of the things about a monastery is you're going to have a little bit of a schedule with yourself. And this is an important part of your spiritual journey. You can think of it as a self-love schedule. It's a direct trade-off for your participation in life, where you're going to allot certain periods of time to and for yourself to enter that space and be there with yourself and engage in those activities which leave you with a sense of peace, a sense of harmony, a sense of acceptance, and a place of understanding of the oneness and wholeness of everything. The only other issue I really want to talk about for the minute is that post I had put up the other day regarding the way we tend to sacrifice the present moment. And this really was a awfully long sentence, really, to sum up what could have been said a lot quicker as you reap what you sow, right? I mean, right now is the time to plant. There is no other time to plant. Now, a lot of people will say, well, you're crazy. You only plant in the spring, but we're not really talking about that sort of planting. The only time to be what you wish to be is right now. The only time to take that step you never thought you were capable of taking is right now. The trap of tomorrow is it'll never be tomorrow. Wherever you are, it's now. And no matter what you fear about some supposed tomorrow, until that fear is manifest and occurring right now, everything that you need to do, everything that you choose to be, is only available to you in this moment. Now, I'm not saying, well, so every moment of my day I have to be locked into this, infinitesimally small space, this blink we call the present moment. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying, however, is if you take one little step now and then nothing else all day, 1 year from now, you're going to be 365 steps further along. It doesn't mean that you're going to try, and I've seen people do this all the time. They go from 0 and they want to go right to 100. So, I'm going to use the example of people trying to get fit again who get out of shape. They realize they're out of shape, and rather than start slowly with going for a walk, they try to run a 10K marathon. They go from 0 to 100. Now, what do you think is going to happen? The shock to their body will probably give them a heart attack. Or if not, it's going to turn them off because they're going to puke their guts out and feel miserable by the end of it, should they make it at all. They're going to feel so miserable about themselves, and that, of course, will go straight to the ego, and the ego will grab a hold of that, and they will cease to exercise at all and go right back to the couch and the potato chips. We never get from A to B in a snap. No matter what we're doing, no matter what's available to us right now, it is the way of the human being to fight and struggle and kick and scream and wail and gnash and just keep going and going and going until we finally give it up and decide to grow just a little bit. This is where we are, not only as individuals, but as the whole of humanity. We are literally on the cusp with our entire existence at risk. More than ever, we need those little monastic spaces. And as I've said, that space will grow in resonance. It will grow in power. It will begin to radiate out. And if there's enough of us doing that, we can restore the realization that this is all holy ground, that every encounter is a holy encounter, the divine looking upon itself in mirrored form. That's it. That's all for tonight. Stay safe. You are deeply loved. Regardless of what is happening in the world, ultimately, everything is going to be okay. The point of all of this is to show us, to make us aware, and to guide us towards higher and higher choices. Choices that represent and reflect the truth of our oneness, the truth of our interwoven and interdependent existence. Namaste. Have a beautiful night. And never forget, you're doomed.